Hello and welcome back to the Global Perspective series on essential skills, skills to survive in the war on information. We covered quite a lot of things in the previous videos. We checked the credibility and the objectivity of a source, and today we're going to have a proper look at the quality of evidence as means to assess the objectivity of a source. Most examples we use in these slides are based on the article written by David Schickman on the Amazon rainforest. We checked the credibility of David Schickman before. He passed the test, and previous video we checked for the first time the objectivity of his writing, whether it was biased or not, and we asserted that his article by design is quite objective and not biased, since he covers two contrasting perspectives and he's backing them up with different viewpoints and their arguments. So we cannot spot any prejudice by design in his article, but we should have a proper look on his statements and whether or not he jumps to conclusions without sufficient evidence for what he's actually saying in the end of his article. Having a look at that, checking the statements David Schickman makes and whether they're true or not is connected to a series of questions you should ask yourself. The first question you should ask yourself is, what types of information are present in an article? You have statistical data, you have stories covered by international organizations, and you have stories collected by journalists from local people or national situations. Third type of information are the information given to us by experts, and that might be not a different set of information. It might be, but it's not necessarily, because they can assess the statistical value of statistical data and local stories, but they might have some extra type of information present because they have an overview of things. Having said that, in general, the best situation is that one type of information corroborates other types of information. So you have the best situation that statistical data is backed up with local stories, or that whatever the expert says is backed up by statistical data. Having one of these sources, one type of information in a source, might be a liability for the objectivity. So it might be downplaying the objectivity of an article. And I explain why, because some of you might think that statistical data in itself is objective, but it's not. Let's have a look. Why do we need corroboration in order to have objectivity? This statement I make, the objectivity of statistical data is not self-evident, might be exemplified by crime statistics. These are two screenshots from a statistical report from a local police force in Canada, and they try to cover the reality, the truth of all hate crimes in their area. But in their report they claim that not all incidents are reported to the police. And it's a good thing that they honestly admit that, because that's giving us the means to check the value of their information. But what we're trying to look for is, why is statistical data not objective in itself? Is the fact that the input of a data set, or the means of the collection of a data set, is the work of humans. In this case of crimes, people should report what is happening to them in order to get a good, objective, representative data set, but not always crimes are reported. Either because people think that it's not so bad that that's what's happened to them, or because people might not be trusting the police themselves. And that's a problem with data. The way data is collected might be a problem for the objectivity. Same thing with the coronavirus statistics. Lots of criticism is covered in the newspaper. Statistics in themselves might even cover up ugly parts of a story by changing labels. You can see that in the left article. Or simply because they're not having a look how data is compiled. So for the coronavirus, that's the essence of the debate is there lots of testing or not, and that might even influence our impression of the situation in one country and contrasting that to another. So different types of information is more objectivity. Statistics need corroboration of different types of information in order to be more sure about the objectivity. Let's apply this on the article of David Schickman on the Amazon rainforest, because he claims that one football pitch a minute is getting lost every minute. Let's see what types of information he presents to us. At the left side you can see that he is presenting satellite data, which is a type of information which is already a problem to us, because in the Cambridge booklet, which is where the screenshot is taken from, you can see that statistical data is there, stories are there, and expert information is there. But where do you need to categorize satellite data? That's hard. I would say for now we should collect it below information that is gathered globally, since satellites are covering global data. And you can see that there is a storyline, local storyline, covered by David Schickman himself and local tribes. So his information is gathered predominantly in a narrative way, narrative data, and that might cause some worry about the objectivity of his article, because what might be needed to constitute the objectivity of this statement is statistical data, and that's not present in this article. If he claimed that one football pitch is getting lost every minute, the only means to really prove that is by statistics, and it's not there. Let's have a second look. So a different set of questions is about the sources of evidence, and let's stick, for the sake of argument, to statistics. If you have a data set, you might question the fact where that data set is originating from, or who is collecting that data. Is that a data set compiled by journalists, local tribes, and maybe some charity organizations? Is the data from the Brazilian government, or is the data coming from the United Nations? That might lead to a different data set and a different interpretation of that data set, and that's where vested interest might slip in, and that's where the idea of viewpoint slips in, because it does matter from which viewpoint a data set is collected. In general, again, the best situation is that one source of evidence is corroborating other sources of evidence. So in the case of statistics, you have multiple data sets, or in the case of stories, you have multiple stories from different viewpoints, etc. In the case of the article of David Schickman, you can see that multiple viewpoints are covered in the sense of stories, but again, we're checking the statement on the fact that his claim that one football pitch is getting lost every minute, and stories do not really add up to that. They impossibly cannot support fully the statement that a football pitch a minute is getting lost. Why? It's kind of self-evident. The Amazon rainforest is so huge that David Schickman can spend his entire life in visiting the Amazon rainforest, its local tribes, and trying to see what's happening. But still, his claim that one football pitch getting lost every minute in this huge area, wow, I don't see how he can get enough storyline evidence for that. It's impossible. So despite these testimonies, local storylines, this method of supporting a statement might not be suitable, and that's where this last category of questions is about. We're looking for statistical data in this case, because that method of evidence gathering is most suitable, but it's not there. And even if it's there, there's a big play with that data. In David Schickman's article, he explains himself why government data is wrong. It shows the numbers, but it doesn't doesn't portray the reality. So the numbers, what numbers, who's collecting it, and what is it about. They even hire their own experts to make analysis of satellite data and to try to give their own interpretation of it. It's their good right to do so, but that makes it gives again proof that whatever data you use, it's subject to different vested interests, viewpoints, and nothing is self-evident. So again, we need different types of information to corroborate each other. We need different sources to corroborate each other, and then we should assess for ourselves whether the method is actually sufficient to support a certain statement or claim. All in all, is objectivity possible? It becomes a nightmare. For instance, looking at Brazil, journalists face problems over there, just like they're facing that worldwide. Wait a minute. There are lots of imprisoned journalists around the world, but we don't see any reports in Brazil. So maybe journalists do give a good impression about the situation in Brazil. Oh no, 25 journalists are killed in Brazil these recent years. Maybe there is a problem with the objectivity of journalistic accounts on the Amazon rainforest. Wait, it's not that bad. No journalists were killed in recent years, so maybe journalist accounts are giving us an objective view about the situation in the Amazon rainforest. But maybe they're not being killed, but they're only threatened to death by lots of people. That might be the case as well. We don't know whether we can trust this data organization, or is this source credible? Another statement is made by this organization, Reporters Without Borders, saying that lots of journalists are threatened by all kinds of means, even by their own president. Democracy and freedom of expression are under threat in Brazil, according to these people. There might be a huge problem for journalists in that area, but who are these people saying this to us? Can we trust them? Yes or no? RioTimesOnline.com say that newspaper journalists were attacked by Bolsonaro supporters. But again, is it really the case, or is it just hysteria, fake news, fantasy? Because Bolsonaro could point us to the fact, well, journalists are perfectly safe in my country. They can do their work. I even improved the situation. It's really hard to get to the real, to assess the real story of the Amazon rainforest. We cannot even assess the quality of statistics. We're having a really hard time to assert 100% objectivity. All in all, in many cases, you can only assert plausibility, and credibility remains important.